I was pretty nervous about what happens if I break my hand. I don't have a disability policy, which we've talked about before, because Mark and I cover each other. And I was a little concerned that if something happened to me, what would happen to my practice? My friend got sick. He had cancer, and he was a solo practitioner, and he had to stop practicing immediately and start cancer treatment. And, he's in the middle of a veneer case, and he's got full schedule for the next 6 weeks. And what was he going to do?
Welcome to the Authentic Dentist Podcast. Join Dr. Allison House of House Dental in Scottsdale and Sean Zayas, founder of Zana, as they lead dentists deeper along the journey of authenticity to reach greater fulfillment in their professional lives and to deliver remarkable patient experiences.
We're on episode number 99, which is really exciting to think about our humble beginnings 98, 99 episodes ago, starting in your office, and things just keep evolving and keep changing. And we have something coming up right around the corner that we're not going to spoil it for you. But yeah, Allison, good to see you.
It's good to be here. I can't believe it's 99 episodes. We started in 2019, remember? And yeah, we've come a long way. Just even technology. I think we were one of the very first dental podcasts, but we didn't have the technology at that time.
I think it's amazing that you, as a full-time dentist, not just find the time, but make the time to really do this and do it at a high level and commit to it. Even through COVID, we continued to have our little social distancing, and we still have a podcast. So just want to honor you. As dentists know, it's busy. There's
It's
a
a busy
going on.
life. Yeah. And at the time I had one kid at home in high school. So yeah, but it's important to make time for things that are important. And I feel like what we're doing here is important. And that leads me to our discussion today. I posted in the Mommy Dentist group about my disability group. And there was a lot of interest. People wanted me to email them the policy and how it worked. And so I think it's good information and we should share it.
Okay, so a disability group, for anyone that has no idea what that is, what is that from like a 10,000 foot level?
So there are 16 of us. We're all dentists in the same area, in the same city for sure. And what happens is if one of us is killed or disabled for some reason and can't continue to practice, then there are 15 other dentists that will cover your practice until it could be sold. And so it's an insurance policy, but it's not something I actually pay for. It's something I'm part of.
Okay, what was the genesis of this? Was this something that was going on and someone's like, hey, Allison, we want to make it bigger, come on in? Or were you kind of one of the founding members?
I was not one of the founding members. It's been around a long time. I was just invited, which was so nice. I was a young practice owner and I had 2 little kids at the time. And I was pretty nervous about what happens if I break my hand. I don't have a disability policy, which we've talked about before, because Mark and I cover each other. And I was a little concerned that if something happened to me, what would happen to my practice? So I was invited, and at the time, the closest in age somebody was to me was 10 years older than me. So it was really nice to be invited. They already had the policy, and they were very formal about it. There was a meeting every other year where we made a commitment to each other. We had an election for a chairperson, and so somebody was a chairperson for 2 or 4 years. And the chairperson is the one that would organize everything. So let me just give you an example. We did have this happen a couple of years ago. My friend got sick. He had cancer, and he was a solo practitioner, and he had to stop practicing immediately and start cancer treatment. And, he's in the middle of a veneer case, and he's got full schedule for the next 6 weeks. And what was he going to do? So he called the chairperson, and the chairperson arranged for each one of us to take 1 day out of our practice, 4 days a week. So I took 1 day, and for a month, we had to do it for 2 months, actually. We went in and covered his patients.
Now, is that like zero compensation because it's just part of being
Zero
in the group?
compensation. Yeah, we were not paid for that. It cost us money to cancel the day of patients. And you had to take whatever you got. If it got a Tuesday, you canceled your Tuesday and you went over and covered his practice that day. but it's one day every month. And we had a limit of 3 months. But again, you can structure this however you wanted to. You get a group of 16 people together and you have that conversation on what's going to be covered, what's not going to be covered. When I first joined it, they said maternity would not be covered. Well, there was only one woman, and so we didn't really care because we both already had children. But if you had an all-female group, you could definitely have that as part of your policy, whatever you wanted to do. It's not written down in a way that you can force somebody to work.
Now, is this something where you've been part of it now for, I'm guessing, over 10
18 years?
Okay. Now, have you also continued to expand it and recruit it so there's always kind of a new generation of younger dentists that are also being part of it? Because I imagine as the group gets older,
they're retiring, but they sell their practice to somebody else. And so that person usually is part of our group. They join. So we aren't really recruiting in the same way because it does seem to be staying the same size.
So tell me some of the challenges of, I'm guessing it's just organizing something like this. You know, if people don't know, where do you start? You know, are you talking to other dentists, obviously, that are in some sort of a close proximity? We're not talking about someone from another state that has to fly in.
Well, you couldn't do that because of licensure. So you really would need somebody in your city. You don't have to be close, though. It doesn't have to be a neighbor. We do sign an agreement that we won't solicit patients. So if I go into your office and I take care of your patients because you're disabled, I'm not going to take those patients and bring them to my office. That is not appropriate, and I'm not allowed to accept them. I think it's for a year if they decide to come to my practice. So I'm not allowed to take your patients. And so that feels good. We also made arrangements. We have the same broker. So that person would be notified immediately to sell the practice. And then, of course, they've got to work with the spouse and the office manager. But we don't want to sit here and wait. So if you are, especially if you died, we're selling the practice. That's already the commitment.
Okay, so I can see why this will be really helpful, because if someone had disability insurance, it's still nice to know that your patients are going to get taken care of as there's outstanding treatment or treatment that's already scheduled. And this really is for when something unexpected out of the blue happens that no one's planning for. Was there ever some time when someone's like, hey, I think this qualifies as some sort of a disability, and you guys just use discretion and you're like, look, that's just because you want to take a longer vacation? Like nothing like that. And like no one's ever abused it?
We've never had anybody abuse it, ever. Before I joined, I understood there was somebody who broke his hand and that he was disabled, so he couldn't see his patients, but he didn't even come to the office for those 6 weeks while he was healing. And they didn't think that was cool. You needed to come to the office. You needed to pay your bills. You know, you shouldn't have left it all up to us. So we put some rules in place for that. But really, no one's ever abused it like they just wanted to take a vacation. It's a big deal. Your practice is not going to make money. There are patients that don't want to come and see somebody else. You really don't want to do this unless you are in a situation where you have to.
Okay, so if I'm listening right now and I'm like, okay, this sounds like a really great idea, what would be like a step one for getting this started?
So you got to call your 15 closest friends in town and get together. And we have a meeting every other year, and you have to attend it, or you have to have somebody stand there in your place, because we are kind of like making a commitment to each other in person. We will do this for each other, because you can't really sign something and force somebody to work for free.
Now tell me, if you already have the group, what stops you from just saying, let's turn this into a buying group? Is 15 not enough to get group like discounts from Shine or from Patterson?
You know, that's not a bad idea. I've never thought about it. We all have very different practices. It's not been something we've ever discussed, but it's an interesting thought. Yeah.
At the meetings, has it ever turned into ever like more like a mastermind from time to time where it's like, hey, we only meet once every other year. Any challenges where people kind of end up helping out, or is it strictly staying in the...
It is strictly staying in that disability lane. I do have an on-call group, and we rotate. I'm on call this week. Somebody will be on call next week. And really, we take our own call, but if I needed to go somewhere, somebody will take care of my patients. That is at their office, though. And it's one of those things, if you break a veneer, and I'm out of town for a week, somebody's going to temporarily put that on for me. so that I can see that patient when I get back. It just covers me.
So it sounds simple because I think you've successfully been part of this for, like you said, 18 years. What maybe wasn't so obvious that over the last 18 years, well, it's like, well, it's because we set it up right. We communicated right. We had things in place. How could this go wrong, let's say, if agreements or expectations aren't set correctly?
When my friend had cancer, I was actually the one who started calling people. And I was terrified because I put together a schedule. I just wrote down names. Dr. Johnson's going to see people on Tuesday, and Dr. Ahmad is going to see people on Wednesday. And I didn't put anything together about who the patients were. And when I called Dr. Ahmad, he was like, of course I'll be there. I made a commitment. Of course I will be there. No one even batted an eye. And I was just so grateful. That was so nice. I didn't have to fight with anybody about days. If somebody said, I absolutely can't do that, they asked for the schedule and made arrangements with somebody else. I did not have to deal with that at all. So that was amazing. I think you really have to have a group that would care about each other enough to do this. You would never want somebody to say no when the time came. The other thing that was interesting is when I went in and talked to my friend about his practice, I realized that he did extractions and placed implants. I don't do that work. So I cannot cover those patients. And so we had to run through like when he had extractions and who in the group would do that. And if not, who we're going to refer them to. So there's some complicated things there. We all do general dentistry, but all of us have like a niche. Like I don't think anybody could come in and do my occlusal guards because it's kind of a niche thing that I do. But for the general, we were able to cover hygiene. We were able to prep crowns. We were able to help each other. The other thing is dentists have varying levels of how much management they do. And so if that doctor's not going to be there, who's going to order supplies? Who's going to pay the bills? Who's going to run the practice? And so that had to be worked out, like how much of that was going to be me, how much was that going to be his spouse? And his spouse at the time needed to support him. That was more important. His office manager. So we had to make sure that all those kind of things were covered, and those are things we never thought about either.
So is this something where the office managers are kind of all on board, aware?
We all have documents that say who the chairperson is, who you're supposed to call, who everyone's office manager is, and you're supposed to keep that up if you change office managers so that they're aware of what needs to happen if somebody goes down.
So now, is this all like a good faith arrangement, or is there something legal to it?
There's really nothing legal to it. It is all good faith. But we care about each other. We're a community. And if I say I'm going to stand up for you, I am. I'm going to go and do what I can do.
But like you didn't have to form like a bank account together. There's no LLC going on. There's no governing documents.
There are governing documents because you have to decide like what are your rules. I told you we didn't cover maternity leave at that time. And ultimately we still don't. But if you have a baby that is in the NICU, we decided we would cover you for a short period of time. But that's not quite the same as maternity. At the time, we also decided we weren't going to cover anybody for an alcohol drug issue. And that has since changed as well. But those are things you need to talk about and put in your document, like what's covered and what's not covered.
Now, for the formation of the documents, is that something that you'd say, hey, seek legal counsel in drafting it? Or was it something that these are probably around?
It's been passed down. So I don't know. Okay. I'm happy we can link it in the comments section for this. Absolutely. So people can see the document, but you have to modify it to fit you and your group and how often you feel like you should meet. But yeah, it's a really good thing because it makes me feel much, much more safe. And it makes my husband feel like if something happened to me, there's no way that he can come down and run my practice. He has a busy law practice. He knows nothing I don't think he knows my passwords. What would he do? So we have each other, and that means a lot. Yeah. I'm trying to think some of the other interesting things that we've thought about. We all have estate plans. That was an important piece of it. And part of that's because I'm married to an estate planner. So that helped. But the estate plans of like who are you, if you have a child that's a dentist, who's going to collect the money, do you have life insurance or disability insurance, those kind of things that are going to help cover the cost of the practice. There's a lot of pieces like that are important for a disability group. And just things that you just need to think through when you have this group. When you first have that meeting, you do want to have those conversations like, what are you going to cover? What will be the outcome? How long will you do it? We have an agreement of 3 months. So it's 3 days out of my practice, which is reasonable for me. I could not cover 30 days all by myself. That's not going to happen. There are some groups that only do a half day instead of a full day.
So when you say there's some groups, so you've heard of this before.
Oh yeah, there are other groups.
Is it always called a disability group, or does this go by other names sometimes?
An indemnity group. I think those are the two names I know of, but I'm sure there's lots of different things that they're called because it's not as formal, but it is, you have to think through what's going to happen. The disability piece, I think, is more complicated than a death piece because if somebody dies, you know that you're going to sell the practice.
You know exactly what the direction is. This is what we've all agreed on. We're going to sell it. But with disability, it's like, well, how long? Is it permanent disability?
Yeah, those are the questions.
There's more discretion probably involved in how you navigate.
So I think in our policy, if you had a heart attack and you were on life support, we're not necessarily going to sell your practice because you might recover. We don't know. So we're going to give that a little bit of time. We're going to take care of your practice for a month, but we're not covering it more than 3 months without some movement. You've hired an associate. Something's going to happen because we're not going to keep covering it. But there are certainly groups that went 6 months because it's 6 days out of your practice. I feel like that gets pretty cumbersome. I don't think I could do 6 days out of my practice. That's more than a week. Think about it.
Now, how come there's not just a general talk of if it exceeds a month and I have to do another day, now all of a sudden we're splitting production for the day as if it was an associate just because, hey, I appreciate that everyone's already set up to do this, but is it because it kind of removes the goodwill?
Yes. Now it becomes a business transaction. And we assume that you as the dentist, you need that money. You need that money coming in for your salary, for your employees. You don't want to fire your employees, for your rent. And we're also not going to be able to produce as much as you do because we aren't diagnosing in hygiene. We don't know these patients. We don't have a relationship. So we're probably not going to bring in as much money as you, the dentist, would. And so you need that money. You have a medical bill probably, or something's happening. In some disability policies that you pay for, there's room for you to hire an associate. And so then that would be a different story if you hired an associate. But no, this is just total goodwill. We go in and take care of your practice.
It sounds like everyone, it doesn't sound like there's much of a drawback at all, aside from if someone is scared for competition. It's like, how could I reach out to 15 people in my local area? And maybe some people, the population density is not as much as Phoenix. I know we're not the craziest, but if it's maybe in more of a rural area, could this survive with just 5 members? What do you think the minimum would have to be? Do you think it would have to be something like 10?
We have a minimum of 12. That's the lowest we will go. But I think it could work with however you wanted it to. If you were in a rural community and there were 6 dentists in your area, you could certainly make it work. I don't know if you could cover in the same way, though, because you're not going to take once a week out of your practice to cover someone else's practice because you can't sacrifice your entire practice for them. It's a wonderful thing. I'm so grateful that I got involved. Seeing it in action, I was even more grateful to be part of it. Our friend did recover. We sold his practice. He did recover, but it took a year. And so now he's teaching at the dental school, and he's over 70, so it was just fine. He got full price for his practice, and I think it was a win for all of us. So if you have the opportunity or the inclination, I highly recommend that you create this because it was very powerful for us.
Thank you for listening to the Authentic Dentist Podcast. To join Allison and Sean on this journey, hit the subscribe button to never miss an episode. Here's to your success. Express yourself fully. Live authentic.